Good morning, everybody. My name is Elizabeth Sunnyboy. I'm originally from Pilot Station. My Yupik name is Pupsuchungak. And I want to welcome everybody here today. Today we're going to take a look at the Grieving cycle as a community development tool. And in ANTHC, we usually present blanket exercise with different agencies or people, and what we haven't done with that blanket exercise is to look at the grieving cycle relating to the blanket exercise, but this relates to it as some of it's going to be kind of heavy, but it's just a presentation for you to take a look at where your community might have gone, what your community might have gone through, and what our people have gone through. So I'll go ahead and get started. If you have questions or any comments, we'll ask you to report back when I complete the cycle and after my presentation, so that and when you ask a question or comment on something, just use your community.
Liz, you still there? Liz? We lost you, Liz.
I'm here.
Okay.
You hear me?
Yeah, we hear you now.
I pressed something on the side of it by accident. Okay, we're going to take a look at the grieving cycle as a community development tool. You can hear me now? Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes,
okay.
We can hear you.
Okay. The first part in the top of the community cycle as a community, grieving cycle as a community development tool. The first part of it on top, we're going to take a look at the losses that our Alaska Native people have gone through for many years. Loss of culture, our language, our children, land base, and spiritual beliefs. When there was, maybe about a week ago or 2 weeks ago, we looked at different things that came into Alaska, disruptions to a lot of our community Native people because of what was happening. And this is the things that happened after the people came in, the people looking for fur, oil, gold, whatever was brought into Alaska, and it affected Alaska Native people. So there was many losses. Our culture, we couldn't practice a lot of our dances anymore. We were told those were evil. Our medicine people were told to move away and not be part of the community. So if our grandparents, one of them was our medicine person in the community,
You're breaking up, Liz.
okay, our losses, and then our children, because of all the deaths in the communities, because there were many, the Great Death and the things that affected our people, where a lot of our people died off. Our children had to be taken away to their children had to be taken away to boarding schools. So there was that separation from communities with children. One of the things that we heard in this training that we were going through, there was one community, there was not even one child, but there was babies, but no children playing. That loss, the connection between the children and their grandparents, the unconditional love was no longer there because the children were taken away to orphanages. So, and then our language, we have to speak English and not our language. So some of us lost our native language, and then the land base. Our Alaska was divided after gold rush and everything. All those interruptions, things are hunting places or our natural homes. Those things were disrupted because even our parents were told to communities where schools were and leave their community homes and just take everything that they needed to do and move away where there were schools. So even our hunting rights were disrupted in that area. And then our spiritual being, our people were spiritual people. They always connected with the Creator, even through dances and songs. They did prayer with the songs and the drumming that they did. Always be thankful for everything that was provided to them. They were always in thanksgiving and asking the Creator for their blessings for their community and people that were in that community. So a lot of those things, there was lots of all those things. One of the people told a story that her grandparents lived through where in the community there were no children playing. If we try to imagine that, no children playing, what did that community go through? The loss of child, the loss of laughter, the loss of playfulness, the loss of nurturing and watching children, because they always knew that children were gifted and someday they were going to be natural helpers to the community. So when they were taken away, when children were taken away, very quiet in the community. Grandparents going through the grief, loss of connection with the grandchildren, and the parents also, if the parents were living, the loss of connection with their children. Some of them didn't even know where their children were taken away, orphanages or places where some of them didn't know where they were. And there's been stories like that over the years with our history as we people that were in sobriety. We needed to take a look at all these things and understand them and understand what happened to our people. From those losses, there was a lot of the feelings that Alaska Native people went through. Even some Native communities like the Indians and right now even the Black people, some of them are going through this now. Even the Indians went through a lot of this over the past many years with the disruptions of their communities, denial, unable to accept new way of life and new way of responsibility. denial, denying what happened, and they didn't talk about it. They didn't maybe they didn't talk to each other. A lot of denial because the churches brought in new way of worship.
Liz, we lost you again.
Keep touching this. Okay, spiritual way of praying, spiritual way of connecting with the Creator, spiritual way of thanking the Creator for everything that was supplied to them, with the land, with the game, with the everything that was given to them. That was that way of prayer, that way of singing, that way of honoring the Creator was different from the churches, the way they taught the people to worship in their way. And a lot of it was foreign language in that way of worshiping. So they didn't really understand what was going on, but they were told to, you have to attend this church, you have to attend this way of praying. So they had to relearn a different way, which was really foreign to them. Then there's some feelings that start to come in with community people. Depression, a lot of depression, silent, unexpressed anger, relating to things that were going on in the beginning, because the children were taken away, a way of worship and getting in touch with the higher power and the Creator. That we were told not to practice that way, that it was an evil way to worship and ask for guidance from the Creator. So that was a lot of different things that they didn't understand. And so there was a lot of silent, unexpressed anger start to come in with people. Then many of the people, that foreigners that came in, they traded maybe the fur that was gathered with alcohol, drugs, and that's when the alcohol and drugs came into a lot of our communities, a lot of the Native people. Some of that was very foreign, but they start to use alcohol and drugs. So that when that happened, because of everything that was happening, from the losses, from their grief, from the things that they were going through, the hardships that they were going through, even a new community where they weren't even connected to their family members, where they were before in a community setting that, there was harmony before in communities where all the people were together and they took care of each other. They had to move. So a lot of that grief and the hurt and the pain was in new communities that they went to. They didn't know anybody. Some of them didn't even know anybody in a new community because they were forced to move to where there were schools. And if they didn't, they were told, the parents were told, if you didn't move and bring your children to where there were schools, we'll put you in jail. Those kinds of things that our forefathers went through with those kinds of things that they heard, and they had to follow through, forced to follow through, to move away from communities that they were used to, people that they were used to, the relations that they were used to, and go to a different community where some of them might not know anybody in that community when they first moved, because of the schools that their children had to go through. Then that period also brought in suicide. the hardship of some people that couldn't deal with the moves and the loss of language, loss of land, loss of spiritual way of worshiping and honoring the Creator and their culture. Lots of confusion. So the suicides came into being in that period. Then, because of the alcohol and drugs that were handed down with the trades that people were making with our people, alcohol got into families where there was family violence. That was new to our people, but because they were under the influence of alcohol, there was family violence, no communication, a lot of depression and anger, and a lot of it because it hadn't been expressed or talked about before, it got to be acted out to people that they were close to because of the influence of alcohol and drugs. Families got the end of the violence, the hurt and the pain that they went through, within families. There was also a lot of gossip and jealousy in that period. Maybe somebody was doing well over here, and because we weren't doing well, a lot of jealousy among people, a lot of gossip among people, putting down. If somebody made an effort to do better, they were put down to where eventually they just gave up and, went back to their old ways of acting or behaving because of the jealousy and the gossip that was present at that period. A lot of grief that people went through. And then there was the acting out, and this is in anger, because a lot of this was foreign to them. They didn't talk about, they never talked about what the families were going through, the violence that's present in the homes. A lot of people weren't talking about those issues among themselves or with other people. So there was a lot of acting out, especially under the influence of alcohol. And the people that came in, even the church leaders, people that came in, there was a lot of sexual abuse among our people. And, people were going through a lot of stresses and things that a lot of it was foreign to them, because they had ways to deal with situations in a South House setting. If one of their members misbehaved, they knew how to address that in front of other people, so that everybody knew what the action of that person was, and they had ways to help that person come out of that way of acting out. So they knew how to correct their people. They knew how to help the person to improve themselves. And the person that offended, maybe family members over here, the community knew what their action was going to be to change themselves, and that was to provide help and support and hunt or get wood or get ice for the family that the offense happened to. So they had ways to correct each other and as a community, so that everybody knew how to help that person not to re-offend. They knew how to take care of these things when they were living in harmony in the small communities that they were in. And there was that when there was no division among children and grandparents and parents and young people taken away to orphanages because there was a lot of death when this period was happening. And so there was a lot of grief and hurt and pain, a lot of anger, a lot of depression, a lot of hurt. And they saw that when they're drinking, that gets them away from all that pain that they were going through. So a lot of it was starting to be dependent on using alcohol. Unfortunately, when that happened, there was violence in the home, there was violence in the community, and none of this was being addressed at any time. One of our elders, when we went through this training, one of our elders said, you know, instead of laughing at someone that was drunk and falling down, and that's when we should have reached out to that person and try to help them and correct them. We didn't do that. That's why we have many people in alcohol and drugs and acting out and a lot of suicides. So the people knew how to correct someone if they did something to act out or misbehave. They knew how to help them. They knew how to correct them. They knew how to support them as a community. But with this alcohol and drugs and other violences that came in, you know, nobody reached out to each other people. Maybe many people were ashamed and hurting and in pain, and they didn't know how to share that with other people. So there was a lot of this going on in communities and in villages and new villages. And like the elder said, we should have taken care of our people when they were when we saw them falling out drunk. That's the period when we should have reached out and helped that person to get out of that situation, and we didn't do that. So a lot of these things that were happening, and we were starting to talk about them and open to counselors, or open to a friend, or open to someone that will listen to us. People knew how to do that when they were living in harmony in communities that they came from before. They knew how to take care of each other. They knew how to reach out to each other. They knew how to help each other through food and gatherings and things that they were provided in the summer or in the spring, when they got supplies of fish and berries and everything. They knew how to take care of each other. They knew how to reach out to each other. They knew how to correct a problem when it happens. They didn't ignore it. They knew how to correct and give guidance to that person that made a mistake. They looked out for each other. And these are a lot of the stories that when we were in training with the elders, they talked about these things. They shared with us what happened in their period when these things, the interferences started to come in. They shared a lot of feelings that they went through. So they helped us, the elders that told their stories, they helped us to learn how to talk about some of the things that we were personally going through, like when we first got sober. Many of us didn't know how to be in a good relationship. Many of us didn't know how to raise children, you know. But these were discussed and talked about and shared before the disruptions and interferences came into a lot of our Native people in communities. Then there was apathy. It's a feeling like no emotions or feelings. It's like even there was lots of hurt feelings and deep feelings. We didn't know how to talk about them, or we felt like we were the only ones going through that. experience, and it was hard to talk to people, reach out to people, because a lot of it was fairly new and too much for people to handle. It became like a numb feeling, hard to talk about, how to even identify, how to even being ashamed of, why am I so angry? Why am I so depressed? Didn't even know how to share these feelings, intense feelings, because of the disruption of what happened to our people here in Alaska, or even other natives that are going through this today. We see the parades today. A lot of the Black people going through we could recognize things that they're going through right now because of the, not being understood, not being, that not being provided with jobs that other people have, being in low homes. I mean, areas where they have hardly anything to survive with, or they have no jobs. So these things are the effects of what happened in the 100 years, that 100-year events that influenced Alaska Native people. This is what really happened to our people. So with that, apathy, it felt like apathy, no feelings anymore, being numb, unable to talk about because we're not understanding, maybe afraid to talk about it because of the violence we were in, like we were the only ones going through that. And then many of us were into alcohol and drugs also, to numb a lot of these things that were happening in communities and in our villages, in our new villages. So a lot of it was felt by our parents and even our grandparents over the years. The loss of children. They didn't have anyone to nurture, mentor, or talk to about the way of life they're going to live when they grow up, because our grandparents were good at that. They watched children. That young child is going to be our medicine person. That young child is going to be our leader. We need to nurture and watch them, guide them. None of that was happening. So there was a lot of empathy. I mean, not empathy, apathy. No more feelings. Like they didn't have emotions or feelings. Yeah, and so that was happening. The next part that happened in the community, in the village with people, was the government owes me. We got into welfare monies. We got into other things, the foods that the government was passing out to people. We got used to that kind of foods that they brought into families and communities. And a lot of that was foreign to us because our way of living and eating was from the land, animals, fish, moose, beaver. Those things were our natural ways of eating, but the government brought in foods that were, a lot of it was foreign to our body. That's why many of us are going through physical and things that affected our bodies, where we start to have diabetes today, high rate of diabetes, because a lot of the foods that were introduced to us were foreign to us, but we were forced to eat those things that were foreign to our body, where naturally we were taken care of with the gifts from the Creator, from the land, from the water, naturally hunted and brought home and put away for future use. And we provided for orphans and elders. All of this was provided in communities when they were whole, when they were in harmony. A lot of the things that maybe orphans or the elders needed was provided because the people gathered their food, they prepared it, they put it away, and when there was a big celebration of people through dancing and songs, that supply was given to the orphans and the elders, so that the elders and even the orphans, they never went without it, because they were provided naturally by the people that gathered all the things that they needed to have throughout the winter, the berries, the moose, the beavers, the fish, dry fish. Everything was provided, and also at the big gathering dances, orphans and elders were provided their supply of food. Always take care of each other. That's the way our people were, always watching out for each other, always serving each other, always watching out for who's sick, because our natural healers, traditional healers would provide taking care of that person until they got well. So a lot of those things, like they were taken away, and so many of us, many of our even our young men. The government owes me. Many of our young men are staying home, raising the children while the moms are at work. So the work experiences, the men are staying home raising children, and that wasn't their responsibility, because their world was out there. They were healthy, being out in the wilderness, hunting, gathering food, getting wood. That was their way of living, to take care of themselves and to be healthy and be providers. But with that government dependency, the money came easy, and then our places where we hunted, or places where we can get food, a lot of those things also got disrupted as this cycle happened with a lot of our Native people. And then later on, there was the building of local resources. After that whole thing, alcohol, drugs, all the violence, all the domestic violence and sexual abuse and acting out, everything happened after the loss of everything that we had: culture, language, children, land-based spiritual beliefs, disruptions, lots of disruptions after that. Then came a time when people started to become like sick and tired of being in this situation, where people started to build local support in their communities. We need to do something about our children or other people getting into alcohol and drugs. They're not helping us, or they're not helping themselves. We need to find ways to work with them. We need to find ways to support them. We need to find ways to support their families, to work with their families. So that, there was the building of local resources, places where people can go if they need help. the local government, tribal governments, that those came into being later on. They sought help with, finding work. So people start to reach out to each other, utilizing their local resources, their elders, their young people, start to build up communication among the communities in itself, talking to each other, talking out what happened to them, telling their stories, just like Appa said, my Appa Peter Jacob said, it's time to hear the stories of our people. What really happened when they do that, they hear themselves talking, they hear themselves talking about feelings, and that's the first step in recovery. When we start talking about our personal experiences with alcohol and drugs, or the violence we were in, or the putting down of each other through jealousy and gossip, or the acting out in anger, when we can talk about those and letting them go by hearing ourselves talking about our feelings and the way we acted out, my Appa always told us that's the first part in stepping into recovery. People hear themselves telling their story. People hear themselves talking about their alcohol misuse. People talk about the violence that they were in, and they hear themselves talking about that story and the feelings that they went through. My Appa said that's the part of healing that happens to people, because he went through it with us also in our line of training that we went through, and he understood that we need to help our people start to tell their stories. Each person need to tell a story about personal things that happened to them. That's why today many people dealt with the domestic violence. Some of it with like Tender Women's Coalition in Bethel, or some of them through North Star. The children talk about their experiences, or places where some people go to alcohol and drug abuse programs. So people start talking about their experience, what they went through, and the things that they personally went through in the line of recovery that we're in today. And more and more and more people are in that journey in their recovery. We're waking up to all this history. We're waking up to all these things that happened to our people. And we understand that because we've been there. Some of us have gone through boarding schools, taken away from our families and put into boarding school. All the the deaths that happened, all those children were brought to boarding schools. And in the beginning, unfortunately, many of those children that were brought into boarding schools went through hardships, because some of them were sexually abused in those boarding schools, and church leaders or whatever. But today, the thing that's beautiful today is that we learn to talk about things like this and share them with people, so we can help another person to start telling their own stories. So when we help somebody, we're helping ourselves, but we are also helping somebody to learn to tell their own stories. So a lot of these things that happen to our people in our villages and our families, we need to tell it as it is if we want to recover and heal ourselves. We need to tell our stories, no matter how painful and how hurtful it was. Once we get those things out of us, it'll be like they're not going to bother us. Yeah, they'll come back every now and then, but it won't be so painful because we got it out. We got it out of our system. We told our stories. We heard ourselves talking about feelings that we didn't understand at first because there was a lot of unspoken things that we went through. So unless we start talking about them and sharing with people and help ourselves to help somebody else tell their own stories, the recovery will go on. Then the next part is sobriety leadership in communities start to happen. People start to get sober because they've already built local resources to help themselves, and then they go on sobriety movement, 70s and 80s. That's when many of our people start to get sober, and we start to have sobriety meetings, gatherings. So that stories we tell is told to many people. You know, we're not holding on to the issues and the hurts and the pains we went through. We've already started to tell it back then, and in the sobriety movement, we can share openly with other people. And when a person first hears our stories, because they're not there just yet, some of them will say, "How can you tell that story? How can you?" Because they haven't been given permission to talk about their stories with feelings. So when that happens, you know, maybe we'll touch one person to be able to tell their own story. And, you know, that's the gift that we have for each other, is that by telling our story, we can give courage for another person to tell their stories. And so there's been a lot of recovery over the years. Many of our people are getting sober. Many of our people have dealt with their domestic violence. Many of our people have dealt with their sexual abuse. So there's more understanding and more people recognizing things that we need to work on in order to help ourselves and to help our people and even our communities to be in recovery, to be in healing. And then with sobriety leadership, there came community vision with the energy of youth and the wisdom of elders and the partnership with the Creator. Many of our communities, even in Alaska, they're into that community vision because they have partnership with their youth and the wisdom of the elders, and they're truly in touch with the Creator, who can be our ultimate help in order to deal with situations we're in. Even today, the coronavirus, our Creator is bigger than the coronavirus, and He can heal everything. And we just have to keep asking. That's why we have, I talk about the 13 elders in the world. They're prayer warriors. They pray for people. They pray for healing. Once we start healing ourselves, we're able to reach out through prayer to have a community be in healing, for a community to be in healing from the coronavirus. Everything that we do it with prayer and thanksgiving, so that we not only help ourselves, we help other people. Today, there's several communities. We have prayer groups, prayer warriors. We pray for people for healing. We pray for communities for healing. And we know that we're being hurt because we do it in unity. Remember that when the Lord was on earth, He said, when 2 or 3 are gathered in His name, whatever we ask for is already done. When we ask the Father for whatever we ask for, it's already done. So that when we do it in that sense and pray in that sense, and we know that it's already done, it's already going to be taken care of, it's already going to happen. The coronavirus, there's going to be healing because our prayer warriors are praying for that. They're asking for that. So in unity, we even need to go to the Creator for guidance and to help us through hardships that we go through. And then there's the appreciation of acceptance of personal, family, and community responsibility. I have a responsibility to help people get into recovery because somebody else helped me to get into recovery. So my purpose is to, even through these kinds of presentations, I'm hoping to touch somebody today that there is recovery, through people that are in recovery, through the Creator, through our even our children can be healers. They can pray their prayer warriors, and their prayers, the children's prayers, very pure. They can pray for us, and our elders are our prayer warriors. Our elders, our grandparents are always praying for us, each individuals that are in this world today. We have prayer warriors, so we need to be thankful for what the Creator has provided for us, that we're in recovery today. We're looking at what happened to us and telling our stories. We're into reaching out to other people to get into recovery because we've been there. Somebody's helped us to get into recovery. We're telling people, keep it up. We're going to heal together, and we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay because that's the way the Creator created us, helped us out, worked with us. He provided everything for us, the food, the homes that we're living, the families that we're with. We learn to appreciate everyone and each one among our people that we serve. And the people that become servant to other people, we always like, if I'm going to go to a community, if I'm invited to a community, I always be in preparation through prayer, asking the Creator to help other people through me, to speak to other people through me. Always be in preparation. Pray before you go out into the community. Pray that your ancestors will give you the wisdom to tell a story about something that the community needs, the Creator to help you to put words into your mouth so that you can talk to other people to recover. No matter what situation we've been, there is always recovery. There is always people in recovery. There is our Creator. There is our families. There is our children. We have many gifts that we need to be grateful for. When we wake up in the morning, thank the Creator. Thank you for the breath that I still have. Thank you for the sunshine or the rain or the blue sky or the storm that's happening out there. And I'm part of that. The trees that are growing tall, the energy of the trees that can give us energy, the energy of the water that can help provide healing for our bodies. So everything that we have in recovery and getting well ourselves, we learn to appreciate everything, the blessings we get from people, the food, the natural food that we let the people bring. Provide that blessing to that family that did that to you. Thank you. Thank you. You're going to be blessed by the Creator for what you're doing. You always be thankful and blessing people for what they're in the ways that they're helping you. So these are the ways in recovery and getting to know ourselves and helping each other and to be connected with the Creator and other people. These are the ways that we work together to, we'll have memories of that side that was hard and that was that the journey that we took on that part of the circle where it was hard, where it was dark, where it was you felt alone, you felt lost. There's going to be unity as all of us work together to serve our people in the good way and asking the Creator to always be prepared. And when you're going to be working with people anywhere, if you're invited out to the village, always be in preparation. Always ask the Creator for His protective shield all around you. Please put your protective shield all around me, because we don't know the minds of people. Some people's minds are still unhealthy, and they still need help to get out of that negative feeling. And sometimes, I talked about that jealousy. They'll try to put you down through their minds. But always ask the Creator to put a protective shield around you. Whenever you're going to go to work, even before you go to work, ask the Creator to always put a protective shield around you so that nothing evil or nothing bad will touch you. It'll reflect off from you. So always ask for protection. And that's the way to reach out to people, is always be in preparation through prayer, being open, ask our ancestors to share through us, the helpful ways that we can help our families, our people in communities to go into recovery and walk hand in hand together to recover and be healed. So these things, all of these things, I know that when I first got started, maybe some of you felt kind of heavy on the one part of the circle. Brush that off. Right now, take 5 minutes, go drink water, go bathroom, and brush yourself off.
Hi, guys. How are you guys doing today?
Good morning, Amelia.
Good morning.
How are you, Sunshine?
Happy Tuesday. I'm doing good.
Good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Ingrid.
Hi, Amelia. Thank you for hosting, and Goyon Elders.
Yeah. Thank you. Good to see you. Good to see everyone.
Really a smack smile today, Amelia.
Good morning. It says iPhone. I don't know who you are, iPhone. Good morning. Oh, that's good, Fairbanks. Yeah. Oh, hi. Cool. Glad you were able to join.
Okay, I'm back. I hope lots of you drink lots of water
Yes.
and brush off yourself. And what we have today is a lot of people are on that other side where there's recovery and helping each other and supporting each other. You know, we have a lot of prayer warriors today and help from the Creator to be, we've experienced the other side. Most of us have experienced the other side, but today a lot of us are in recovery and we're helping each other. We're supporting each other and we're giving out what we learned over the years of our own pain and then the healing and recovery that most of us are in. So that's one thing, one most important thing that I pray for today, that I can help even just one person to get into recovery, you know, so that you'll be one more person to support us in the line of work that we do today. So did you ask anybody for questions or comments they might have?
Not yet, Liz.
Okay, you can go ahead.
Oh, you done with the presentation?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, I'm gonna stop recording.
Okay.